There's sub-shift gear. Okay. That's actually kind of what I was expecting, actually. There are actually a decent amount of rolls here of close combat that actually kill this Pokemon. Alright, well, I mean, this is what we set up for once we killed the, what's it called? It is time for GBU week number 4. We are playing against Obo here. 2 players currently at 1 and 2. A lot riding on this game. If you guys are excited for today's video, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you have not already. Trying to get to 400 subscribers by the end of the year, and would really appreciate it if you could help me get there. So let's talk about the matchup a little bit, and before we really get too deep into the matchup, let's talk about my team. I've made a big transaction in the last week coming into this game. Arcanine, Hisuian form, and Amoonguss are now on the team. We've dropped Ursaluna and the Serena. We do lose a hazard remover. That is a pretty big loss on this team, but Amoonguss and Hisuian Arcanine are 2 Pokemon that are going to have infinite more utility on this team than the Ursaluna and the Serena. Ursaluna at the time seemed like a really interesting Pokemon to bring. Not that the team was necessarily designed around it. Kind of the theory behind that pick was if we build a team that Ursaluna is not a focal point in, we can kind of take advantage of it in different scenarios and force prep that makes it difficult to prep for that Pokemon. It didn't really fit on any of the teams we built, to be perfectly honest, and I think at this point it's good to drop it and move on. Serena, just not a good Pokemon either, to be honest. I don't think that Pokemon was ever going to come. There were some good reasons to take it at the time, but I think Amoonguss is just going to be a better grass type in general. It's going to force a little bit more prep, and is going to be a Pokemon I can actually bring a few times, and we're actually going to bring it in today's team, so stay tuned for that. And Hisuian Arcanine gives me an interesting offensive threat that is a little bit different than what I already have. It helps break some grass types, which while Baxcalibur can do and Greninja can do a little bit, that's going to be nice. It can break some steel types, not relying on the Iron Hands too much for that as well. So, going to give my team a little bit more balance on the defensive side, which is nice, and give it a different dimension on the offensive side. Let's talk about the matchup now, though. Enough of that transaction. Garchomp, Chi-Yu, Quackavole. That is a powerful top 3. And not to mention Tera'S. This is one of the Pokemon in Terra form. I think is one of the best Pokemon available in this low-tier Terra format. I think Gyarados is certainly up there as well. We've seen, some good performances of that Pokemon early on in the season. But Tera'S, like with Shift Gear, essentially, I think sub-Shift Gear is pretty free in this matchup. And against my team, I really expect that set to come. And that is going to be a really, really dangerous Pokemon for me, and it's hard for me to really prep for it, and it's hard for a lot of teams to prep for it, especially with flying and water being the 2 types. I really don't have a lot of good answers to that Pokemon in this matchup. Gungshot and water and flying coverage really nuke my Tinglu, Screamtail, and Amoonguss combo, and Terra Water is probably the most likely, and Gungshot and Terra Water, Terra Blast, just break through my entire defensive core, essentially, which is going to make this matchup pretty difficult. That's not even to forget the fact that he has Garchomp, which is, a very, very powerful breaker. Probably going to be a hazard setter. Scale Shot is obviously massive. Quackavole is kind of like a 1 Pokemon win con in a lot of scenarios. I've seen a lot of that Pokemon do really, really well in some Showdown team tours recently. And one that's kind of a massive threat. If I don't keep my Amoonguss healthy long term, it's going to be really difficult to handle that Pokemon. Ribombee gives some hazards as well. Sticky Web is a little bit annoying. It does force a little bit more boots on my prep now. And that's not to say I don't bring boots all the time anyway, but that is another thing that Pokemon does require in this matchup. And then Hoophound, just another Pokemon that's so difficult to switch in on. As this matchup, like Obo, you can see here, he is an offensive player, and with Garchomp, Chi-Yu, Quackavole, Hoophound, and Tera'S, I mean, that's an offensive player's team if I've ever seen one. So if we look at my Pokemon, how am I going to deal with this? Baxcalibur actually going to get benched this week. If you look at my opponent's team, it's really tough for Baxcalibur to make a lot of momentum in this matchup and get a lot done. It's good at checking the Garchomp. It can maybe check Chi-Yu if I'm Choice Scarf. Doesn't really do anything to Quackavole unless I'm Choice Scarf, and I got to start locking moves. There's a lot of things that I don't think necessarily work for Baxcalibur in this matchup. Gyarados is another Pokemon that's really insane, and John Jr. and I were talking about this matchup a little bit earlier in the week leading up to this, and the Terra Electric setup set kind of off lead might be a really interesting, play, something to go for. But I decided to go Terra Flying. Once the Reverum is down, it's going to be really, really easy for Tera'S to make a lot of headway in this matchup and do a lot of damage. So if I'm able to break the Reverum and then able to chip down my opponent's team, Tera'S is going to have a field day, just even with a Choice Scarf set. Other Pokemon that are going to be relevant, Iron Hands, Greninja, Tinglu, Screamtail, and Amoonguss are going to be the other Pokemon we bring. We get to see Amoonguss come in here and kind of force some prep. Probably going to be, something like Safety Goggles itself would probably be the most likely way to check this Pokemon. Safety Goggles Hoopa is another Pokemon that's going to be really, really powerful to answer my Amoonguss if he does elect to bring that. So that's going to be something to keep in mind as well in prep. The Garchomp, one of the threats, that's going to be the most difficult on Obo's team to deal with, but Screamtail is one of the perfect answers to that as well. So enough waffling about the team, let's get right into the team builder. This is the team we are bringing this week. A lot of heavy duty boots here. As I said, it's going to be a sticky web matchup. Most likely, that's what I'm expecting, is kind of a sticky web lead and then trying to use Chi-Yu, Garchomp, Quackavole, Hoopa Unbound to really put a lot of offensive pressure on my team and use that sticky web to prevent my checks from being as effective. So right off the top here, let's start with the Tera'S. This is going to be the win condition again for this game. Adamant Choice Scarf, really, really good against my opponent's team. Does require a little bit of chip on the Garchomp, for example. Needs the Reverum to be either Tera'd or dead. So those are kind of the two requirements for this matchup for Tera'S to go ham in. But once those conditions have been met, this Pokemon just kind of sweeps through my opponent's team, and that kind of seems to be a trend with Gyarados and building in this season, is that it's very, very powerful against a lot of the common draft setups that we've seen our opponents build. Not that we've been able to capitalize on it too much. We've only got one win this season, but something we can certainly rely on. Talking about the Garchomp, we have a really, really good answer here. Screamtail here. This is going to be a timid Screamtail. So we do have Play Rough, Baton Pass, Stealth Rock, Ice Beam. And the reason we have Play Rough is this punishes Hoopa Unbound from being a switch into this Pokemon. We are fast enough to outspeed all Garchomp sets, so that is going to prevent as well a lot of Hoopa sets that could potentially outspeed some zero speed Screamtails. Play Rough prevents that Pokemon from switching in effectively. Now, T-Wave does, scare Hoopa Unbound from wanting to switch in regardless, but depending on the type of set he is, if he's not very quick and is trying to, use Hoopa Unbound to come in on stuff like the Tinglu, the Amoonguss, and is not really playing for speed, then this is a Pokemon that can come in and offensively pressure it and kind of pressure those sets that are, content with switching in on Thunder Waves. So Play Rough is going to be for that. Let's go to the Iron Hands next. Iron Hands here, Volt Switch, Thunder Punch, Close Combat, Ice Punch. This is going to be my dedicated lead. If Gyarados was going to be Terra Electric and set up, that was going to be the lead to set up all over the Ribombee in the early game. But this is going to be the lead here. Assault Vest is going to help against Chi-Yu, allow me to make some predictions around that. Volt Switch is going to allow me to get in my Gyarados very efficiently in this matchup and kind of pivot into my Greninja as well, which is a really interesting set this time out. So Greninja here is actually very much fully bulky in that it's got enough speed to match all the Chi-Yus that we need it to, and then putting the rest in special defense to actually pivot in on some common Chi-Yu sets. So if he does happen to be Choice Specs, which has a really, really good matchup into my team, I can pivot into this Pokemon once in a while. It's not going to be a common occurrence, but it does give me that possibility. And then we have the Battle Bond here. Really no use in this matchup for the Protean. It would be nice to lose the Dark type against something like Ribombee, where I do have a lot of special defense that could be of use, but for the most part the Battle Bond is going to be better. This allows me to pick off something like a weak Tank Chomp, for example, in the matchup, where I can come in on something like a Gastrodon Dark Pulse, Battle Bond up, and deal a lot of damage that way. The rest of the defensive core here, Tinglu and Amoonguss, not really much going on here. Whirlwind is going to be nice in case he is a setup Shift Gear Reverum, which I kind of expect it to be. That Pokemon does a lot of work in this matchup. And then Amoonguss here with Spore, Foul Play. Foul Play, kind of the same thing, as well as Clear Smog to prevent those setup opportunities from the Reverum. And then Spore, is obviously good pressure. There's definitely going to be a Safety Goggles mod to come into this. We'll just have to figure what that is in the early game. So that is the team, and let's get right into the battle. It is battle time. This is the team that Obo brought: Zelf, Garchomp, Reverum, Gastrodon, Ribombee, and the Quackavole. My lead here in this matchup every time is going to be to lead with Iron Hands. I'm pretty much expecting 100% of the time this to be Rabombi lead, and I'd like to just get a slow Volt Switch off on that Pokemon as they try to set up the Sticky Webs, and then I can just quickly, get into Tera Gyarados and start attacking. They are Tera Water on Revavroom, which is interesting. That is the one that's a little bit more difficult for me to play around with on my Gyarados, so that's one we have to keep in mind a little bit here. We're going to need to actually focus a little bit more on the chip on that. We can't just spam Waterfall against it because it's not the flying type. That also makes it a little bit more difficult to manage with my defensive bulk that I have. So yeah, this is going kind of exactly, how we drew it up here. We're just going to click Volt Switch. He can go into Gastrodon, but that gives me a free switch into my Amoonguss, which I will take every time. He's got to have somewhere here a Spore catcher. I'm trying to think where he catches the Spore with this team. Interesting. It could be Azelf. That's a possibility. He's just going to like to Moonblast. I am Assault Vest and very, very bulky, so I'm going to be able to take that relatively easily and get a nice Volt Switch off, and that's obviously going to put that thing well within range of the Gyarados. So I'm going to kind of do some cops on the Rabombi here. Moonblast does about 160, so it looks to be about timid lead, which is about kind of what we would expect here. He really does not have a good switch into this Choice Scarf Gyarados here. Like, Choice Scarf Gyarados is just coming in and clicking a button. There's not really much my opponent's going to be able to do about this. So we're just going to go in, click the Tera Flying, and then click a Tera Blast. Like, why does he switch into this? Like, Revavroom can in theory come in, but I'm perfectly okay with that Pokemon wanting to come in and taking a decent chunk of damage to start this game. I could have Waterfalled, actually. Waterfall might have been a safer play here. I do have a little bit of concern that he goes into like a defensive Garchomp set. In prep, I did mention the Teambuilder, or I think I did. I haven't recorded it yet. That John suggested I run Terra Electric and set up on turn 1 against this thing, which I elected not to do. He goes into Gastrodon here. Let's see how much damage this will do. Probably not enough to where this is a 2-hit KO. But once again, this is a free pivot into my Amoonguss, so I'm okay putting pressure on this thing early, by all means. So we'll just see, we'll judge how much damage this does. Would really like to see over 50% of this is a 2-hit KO. Yeah, it's definitely not. Okay, so we know that after some hazards that this is not going to be, yeah, so this is definitely, this is not max defense. This could be, this is within the range of that, but I think there's a decent chance there's some other bulk there. Now what's really nice about this play into Amoonguss is he doesn't have an efficient way to punish me in this spot, so I can just go into this Pokemon here. I'm expecting a recovery move of some sort. I think he could set up the spikes. I think that's very likely as well. But I would like to get a Spore off here. There's no great free switch in my opponent can make here. And they're just going to recover. Okay, perfect. So now we get to see what their switch into Spore is, or what they want to let get Spored immediately. I could see it being something like Safety Goggles, Revavroom, but then it's Tera Water, and then that doesn't necessarily make the most sense. It could be a Zalp. A Zalp is actually a Pokemon I think is like relatively possible here to have that. I don't think I really have any reason to make a prediction here. And this does end up being Goggles. Okay, so that's kind of what we thought would be the play here. Now, it's going to be really difficult for my opponent to click a Thunder, like an electric type attack here, like a T-Bolt with this Azelf. It's very possible that so if I look at offensive pivot, the U-turn does a lot to Greninja, so I can't really switch that in. Amoonguss is going to die to like a Psychic here from Timid, so I do have a little bit of a difficult selection to make here, but I do have kind of the safest option here, which is my Ting-Lu. Just go into that for now. I expect Rocks to come out here most likely, and I don't really have a good reason to risk Greninja on an aggressive Psychic play early here. And I kind of want to preserve the fact that that Pokemon can be a little bit defensive, because Chi was the Pokemon I expected to have that as a Pokemon against, or as a situation against. So he is going to U-turn. We're going to get to see what his immediate answer to this thing, probably the Quackaball. In all honesty, is probably what's most likely to come out here. Once again, I do have Rocky Helmet on Amoonguss, so that's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to manage. And the fact that he does have a Zalp is interesting, in that that's a Pokemon that could potentially be a thwart to my game plan with the Gyarados, because that's very likely to be a Focus Sash. Well, I wouldn't say very likely, but I think there's a high probability that we see a Focus Sash. In comes the Quackaball. Quackaball, I mean, it's pretty free. Amoonguss here. I don't really want to, make too many complicated plays here. There are no rocks up and no spikes, so I'm cool to just do this a few times. And if my opponent just does elect to attack, I think I foul play. He's going to elect a Wave Crash against my Amoonguss. That's going to do nothing, and I'm going to get a bunch of damage off that Rocky Helmet as well, which is super clutch. Now, this thing does probably have the Brave Bird, I assume. That is a move that this thing gets. So it is going to do, from Jolly, it's like Adamant 252. Adamant 252 never kills me here. And I would like a chance to actually break the potential Focus Sash on that Zalf. So I'm going to stay in, and I'm going to pick Giga Drain, because Giga Drain's going to be a little bit slightly better of a move to hit in this spot. And my opponent is going to die if they stay in and go for the Brave Bird. We know that they can't be Choice Band in this spot, so we're just going to Giga Drain, try to get as much health back as we can. And they are going to switch out now, so would really like to get some information. And they go into this thing, which is actually huge, because I am going to be able to pick off some of that extra damage. I'm going to be able to break a potential Focus Sash here, which is huge for setting up the Gyarados endgame. Once again, Gyarados is the main endgame here for this team. I don't really want to get too cute with it at this point. So, a few things to consider here. If I bring in the... I want to preserve as much health on my Tinglu as I can, if at all possible. What is my best switch into this? Obviously don't want to take another Psychic. I can go into my defensive fast Screamtail. Screamtail would be fine here. We've opened up the damage on his Zalf, which is good, so I'm just going to go into Screamtail. I have to be a little bit mindful with my HP at this point. And I could, but the problem is with this threat versus Chi-Yu, as I never have a real good opportunity to click and go into my, what is it called? Never really have a good opportunity to go into Greninja on this Pokemon versus Chi-Yu. There's opportunities for that. So Play Rough here is kind of useless because that was for the Hoop Unbound, which is not here. And the rocks are up, which is going to limit this Pokemon's ability to actually sweep my Gyarados in the end game. I'm pretty much going to be limited to one switch in against the, what is it called? The don't know why I'm blanking here, against the Aqua Jet possibility. With Wave Crash, I think it's probably Aqua Jet. That would be the most likely expectation on my side. I'm just going to click Stealth Rocks, get my own rocks up here. Alright, my opponent is going to be slower, so they're not Choice Scarf, so that's good information. So the Sash is probably the most likely situation here, and they're going to taunt, and they're actually kind of expected to be faster there, so that's interesting. That's good to note. The fact that they've taunted now, they don't have an amazing point into this. I can't Baton Pass either, which is a little bit frustrating. Ice Beam is like a decent click here. I can get a little bit more chip on this. I don't think that's really going to matter too much. I can't really play rough. I'm not sure what they would really go into here to take advantage of this situation. Revavroom is the most likely, I would think. So I guess I'll just click Ice Beam, see if they hard out into something. I don't really want to switch into this U-turn. This is my switch into the U-turn regardless. Can I get a freeze? Yeah, they're just going to U-turn. And I'm going to take a little bit of damage there, not too much. But we've kind of discerned that this is, yeah, just kind of a Focus Sash lead, Azalf. So good information there. Now the question is if they bring in, what do you bring in here? Probably Revavroom? That thing is going to start to take a lot of chip though, which is very good for me. I'm starting to set up with the rocks. If that's not Heavy Duty Boots Gastrodon either, then that's in range of double Terra Blast as well. That can't switch into Gyarados anymore. In comes Rashford. I'm guessing that's Revavroom. Yeah, Revavroom comes in on this, and it does take some Stealth Rocks damage. That's good to see. It is Terra Water, so this thing is going to be a little bit threatening. I do have Clear Smog and Foul Play here. Unless my opponent like is choiced for some reason, I think this is going to be a perfectly fine switch in. And if they do happen to be some sort of weird set, then I kind of can... I don't think they Terra here. It'll be interesting if they Terra or not. I could have gone into the Tinglu and kind of pivoted around that, taken a poison move, and gone into that after, because Gunk Shot is pretty likely here. We'll see what they elect to do here. That probably should have been Tinglu into Amoonguss, I think. Just like path that a little bit better. My opponent is going to elect to substitute here. So there's sub shift here. Okay. That's actually kind of what I was expecting, actually, was this set in prep. I do have the Foul Play, which is certainly going to be enough to prevent this Pokemon from setting up all over me, which is exactly what I'm looking for here in this spot. So they're going to have Terra Water. Yeah, they're just going to set up in Shift Gear. Perfect. That is exactly what we expected. So they're going to be probably Terra Blast Water and Poison move, would be my guess. And that substitute is going to fade. Let's take a look. So this Foul Play is going to do a lot of damage. And so their Gunk Shot is like one of the possibilities. They could Iron Head, and you know they basically have to have Gunk Shot here to kind of do a lot of damage against me. Yeah, so they do have the Gunk Shot. That's going to do a fuck ton. This Foul Play should do a lot as well. It's not going to put it in range though. I have to think about this, because this could be... This is a menacing situation. So if I sack this, what do I go into after? I think I kind of just go into... I think I kind of have to go into... I kind of have to sack this Pokemon, I think. Is my best play. I'm just going to sack this Pokemon. I think it's a little bit unfortunate that I have to do that. They're going to Terra Water. Okay, so they're actually going to predict me to switch into Tinglu here, which is actually kind of huge. Do they die to Rocky Helmet if they do this? They could die to Rocky Helmet if they do this. Wow. Oh no, this doesn't take fucking contact. I always forget that this doesn't take contact. Yeah, and I'm not going to live that. Okay. So after rocks, I have a decent chance to live this. I live basically most of the rolls. What's the Gyarados calc at? I could bring in Greninja. I think I bring in Greninja as a secondary option here. Adamant +1. I think I have to bluff the fact that I can live this hit. That's kind of the only option I necessarily have here. I do have heavy duty boots. I actually do live all hits. Actually, I forgot that I have heavy duty boots on this. So I do actually live every hit that this Pokemon wants to go for. So I have kind of a... I'm going to have to like sack a lot of Pokemon here to do this. And I mean, I have no play but to Earthquake. I'm going to have to take this Terra Blast. This Terra Blast is going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to... If it doesn't crit me, then I should be fine to kill this. Yeah, perfect. Alright. Reverie down. We did have to sack a lot of Pokemon. We did have to sack Amoonguss and all of our health on this Tinglu. But this was the biggest problem to my endgame with the Choice Scarf Gyarados. And now the rest of his team kind of gets picked off by that Choice Scarf Gyarados. I have a lot of, you know, I have a lot of play still against that Pokemon, which is really, really nice. It brings out Antony here. This is going to be the Quackavall. So Quackavall is kind of a problem here. And then he's going to Aqua Step, but I do have the... So he Aqua Steps here. I can just go into Iron Hands, and I'm perfectly okay with Iron Hands in this spot. My opponent could be Bulk Up or something, so do I want to Whirlwind in that case if he happens to be Bulk Up? Yeah, I'm just going to Whirlwind. I'm going to let him kill me here. He's just going to Aqua Step. Okay. So Iron Hands should be able to come out here, and that's going to pressure this thing. And he's going to get to +1. So there are actually a decent amount of... There are actually a decent amount of rolls here of close combat that actually kill this Pokemon. But the fact that I bring it in here, I think makes him kind of think that I can live all of those rolls here. I don't really have another option. I could have gone into this Pokemon, actually. That might have been maybe a little bit more of a logical play in this spot. I kind of think Garchomp has to come out here. It's the most likely scenario. But I don't know if I necessarily have the ability to play around that right now. Close Combat does not kill this necessarily, so I do have to just Thunder Punch here. Don't really have another option. He's just going to Wave Crash, okay. I think I should be fine to... I think I was fine to live that, actually. Maybe not. Yeah, I had a decent amount of a chance to actually live that, so that's actually really, really annoying here. That crit's actually really, really crucial, potentially to how the end of this game is going to go. Oh, that's kind of annoying. Because I would have actually picked that one off 100% of the time. So, what is my game plan from here? I mean, I still have the Gyarados endgame in the back, actually. Like, it's still technically viable still in this spot. Because he still has to Wave Crash this. And he's going to take a lot of damage from this. So, I kind of do have to keep doing this and sack some Pokemon. So, I'm just going to click Play Rough here, see if my opponent lets me attacks me or not, see what happens here. Man, that crit's actually really, really unfortunate. If I pick this Pokemon off, I don't have to take unnecessary damage on this. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, I'm going to die to that. And this thing is going to die to the recoil, which is really, really needed. But I think we have kind of opened up the endgame we were looking for. So what could come out here? Ribombee. I think he can't bring Ribombee out because that opens up too many problematic turns against my... that opens up the sweep against Choice Scarf Gyarados, so that doesn't make a lot of sense. So Azelf, Garchomp come out. I think I have to go into the Greninja here. I do have Battle Bond, which actually is another potential out as a win con here. So if he goes Gastrodon, I can start trying to flinch that Pokemon down. Once again, the thing is, I'm not doing a lot of damage. I'm really banking on something like Azelf here. I really think he might go Gastrodon, though. I think that's the most likely play. And I just want to get into a scenario where I weaken that Pokemon. Man, that crit was kind of... Man, that crit's really annoying, but I think we can still play around it here perfectly fine. Garnacho. That is a Ribombee lead. Wow. Interesting. I'm not sure how... That does feel a little bit weak to... That feels really, really weak to Gyarados, so he must have... So I'm actually slower here, so I kind of actually do like the idea of U-turning here. I do live Moonblast, and I don't think I necessarily need this Pokemon. Or is it safer to just Surf? I am 363. Is it worth banking on that? I'm going to U-turn here. I actually think he's faster. Yeah, he is faster. Perfect. So I save this to potentially... Wow, that's crazy how much that does. That's actually massive, because that saves this as a Pokemon to come back in and finish off kind of a last-ditch effort, and saves me my Battle Bonder here. Alright, well, I mean, this is what we set up for. Once we killed the... What's it called? Once we killed Thing... Reveroom, then this Pokemon can kind of come in and just start clicking buttons. So let's just start clicking buttons, I guess. If he gives me this Pokemon, then Gastrodon can't really 1v1 me anymore. I don't even think that Pokemon has Scald anymore, so he might try to Toxic me out. Wow, he's going to give me this Pokemon. Interesting. Interesting. So I don't have to worry about priority at this point. I mean, something like Tank Chomp. I have a decent chance to kill, like, Swords Dance Garchomp sets here. I mean, the Azelf is going down, I think, anyway. Like, there's... Yeah, so this is the Garchomp here. So the question here is do I have a reason to switch out? So if he brings this in... I mean, I have to... To get Greninja in, I have to sack it, so I'm just going to click Terra Blast again. He's not Choice Scarf Garchomp, so that's good to know. He might be like a defensive Rocky Helmet set. So that looks to be kind of like Tank Chomp. So he's going to Scale Shot me here. Okay, that Scale Shot's actually going to win him the game, I think. think that skill shot is going to potentially win him the game. Don't think there's anything else I can do. I don't know what he could do, like how he could lose this from here. Ironhead, yeah, and that's going to be game here. Really, really unfortunate game. I think that crit was really, really unfortunate on Iron Hands and forced me to sack my Screamtail in a spot where I didn't need to, and then Screamtail would have been perfect for this endgame situation here. So, you know, it is what it is. You know, they had the Iron Head, but I was faster, so I was going to be able to Ice Beam that. Unfortunate, really. See what my opponent does here. They're just going to Earthquake. Yeah, so good game to Oboe. Hacks is unfortunate. It puts us to 1-3. Not much we can do about the hacks, obviously. At that point, we kind of played, I think, as well as we can. We played around the Rev Room. It claimed a lot of kills, and, you know, we didn't take a lot of differential loss there, but still a little bit frustrating to have to take a loss like that at this point in the season. I'm going to calc something. Maybe I should have considered... I could have considered Ice Fang in that spot. I actually don't know if that's killing. That's not killing at +0, yeah. So that's not really even a consideration I had. I could have Waterfalled. Waterfalled obviously still not a consideration either. But unfortunate that that one that didn't go our way. Crits happen. It is what it is. I think we win that game without the crit in that end game. I think pretty, I wouldn't say pretty comfortably, but I think it's pretty likely that we pull off the win there. But at the end of the day, that's just how it breaks sometimes. We got to win 4 in a row, basically, to make playoffs. So that starts next week against Star. I'll see you guys then. As always, have a wonderful day.